I'm Ryan Eakin, and this is Baycats Banter, the official podcast of the Baycats. And today I'm joined by Ben Davy, the new play-by-play announcer to the Baycats, to announce his return to the Baycats here in 2021, but also discuss his first stint with the Baycats in the early 2000s. Ben, thanks for coming on today.
My pleasure. Good to be with you, Ryan, and so excited that we're going to have baseball back again real soon. It's been a long haul for people through the pandemic. I know it's been a tough time, and we all want to have baseball back. And fingers crossed, June 3rd, we're going to be back at the ballpark.
Absolutely, June 3rd. Before we get into what will hopefully be a 2021 season, I want to ask you first about coming to the Baycats as a member of Rogers TV in the early 2000s, calling games for the Baycats. Just what do you remember about the early 2000s and calling games those few seasons?
Well, our first season covering games on television was 2005, and that, of course, was the first championship season for the franchise in Barrie, and it was just such an amazing year. That team was absolutely loaded with great talent. And seeing them win that season was exciting. For myself, it was my first time doing any live sports play-by-play. So what a time to get on the ground floor, a championship season. So many great memories from that club, culminating with the championship game right in our own park. But also, that was the same year that I began doing play-by-play for the Barrie Colts. So I started doing some hockey announcing that season as well. And had a great run with the Baycats. I think it was 6 seasons. I was play-by-play from 2005 to 2010. Never really wanted to leave my position covering the team at that point, but my kids were starting to get to the age where they were enjoying baseball, and I wasn't getting to watch the games with them. And I thought, those years go pretty fast, and I really wanted to make sure that as a dad, I got the chance to sit with them and experience baseball. The fun of sitting there on a Sunday afternoon, eating snacks, chasing foul balls, teaching them the finer points of the game. And I thought if I'm in the broadcast booth, it's going to be hard for me to really be able to establish that connection with them. So stepped away for about a decade, and so thrilled when I got a chance to talk to Josh several months ago, and ended up leading to the opportunity for me to come back this season. So I'm so excited about it.
Absolutely. And as you said, your first season was in 2005, the year the Baycats won their first championship. Just what do you remember about that season and that final series against the Maple Leafs?
Well, Angus Roy was absolutely lights out. I can recall that. Truly one of the most dominant pitchers in the league at that time. I remember the pitching staff was just so deep, and the lineup was just full of offense. And Paul Spaljerek was the pitcher for Toronto in that final game. And of course, former big league pitcher with all of his credentials, and having a guy like him pitch in Barrie against our team in the deciding game was really something else. The crowd was just so into every single pitch. I think it was a rescheduled game. There was a rain out the night before, so the Sunday was kind of an unscheduled game, but that's where the clinching game ended up being. And of course, the Baycats ended up getting Paul Spaljerek to join them a short time after that. So, and there have been a number of players that have kind of crossed over. I mean, Glenn Jackson. There's been a bunch of others that have made that Toronto to Barrie transition back and forth, and that's really fueled the rivalry over the years as well.
For sure. And as you said, you stopped calling games in 2010, but continued with the Colts. And I want to ask you about your time with the Colts because you're obviously one of the more famous play-by-play guys within the city. And that 2013 playoff run the Colts had, where Mark Scheifele was absolutely dominant for the Colts and ended in the most heartbreaking fashion a season can possibly end, losing in the last second of a Game 7. Just what do you remember about that series against London and that season in 2013?
Well, Game 6 in 2013 of the OHL Finals was the most exciting sports event I've ever called in my life. And the Colts were ready to clinch on home ice. Unfortunately, it didn't go the way that the fans and all of us hoped that night. But the Colts were trailing London by 3 goals going into that third period and came back to tie the game. I can't remember the exact score, but they scored 3 unanswered goals in the third to tie it, and then they lost it in overtime. And it was just such a disappointing way to have to put the celebration on hold for another day. And then they go to London, and they end up losing on a goal that was scored in the final second. And that was, again, another incredible hockey game. And I remember the Toronto Maple Leafs had that famous collapse against the Boston Bruins that same season. And I think it was even the same night as Game 6 that the Leafs blew that lead. So that was a disappointing, a sad night for hockey fans that I'll never forget. But The incredible comeback that just fell short, and the excitement that was at the Barrie Molson Center that night, it was amazing. And the Colts were red hot that whole stretch. They were building up towards winning a championship, and sadly just fell short.
And like you said, you're just one of the more experienced play-by-play guys in the city. I've always been interested in the routine that a play-by-play guy has, whether it's calling games for the Colts in hockey, Baycats in baseball. Just what's your pregame method and the method to the madness, I guess, for calling games?
Well, it's so different calling play-by-play for hockey than baseball. It's two completely different approaches to the broadcast that you need to take. With hockey as a play-by-play guy, you can pretty much just stick with the action on the ice. You've got the color announcer there that will fill in the analysis between the whistles, so that's very helpful. But play-by-play in hockey, you don't want to get too much into the weeds of storytelling and that sort of thing. You got to know who has the puck and where it's going. And I guess the most important thing in hockey is memorizing the jersey numbers. So when 14 has the puck, you better know who number 14 is. You don't have time to look down at your notes, and the play's moving way too fast. You can't take your eyes off the puck for a second, or you will miss something. So memorizing those players and their jersey numbers in hockey, so important, especially the visiting team, because you're only seeing them a couple of times a year. The home team, that sticks with you after a couple of games. Baseball, very, very different. It's a slower game, so it's conversational. You've got to have stories to tell. Sometimes the game is just a snail's pace, and you got to fill the air with something. So you're not right on the play in baseball like you are in hockey, especially if it's televised. The viewers can see what's happening. So you just sort of let the game come to you. I guess the most important thing is that when the ball is hit, say it's a fly ball to left field, just knowing who that left fielder is. I always have a defensive chart in front of me. So if I forget or I have a brain cramp or something, I glance down, I can see the name of the left fielder. So making sure you've got that defensive chart is important, but it's, you want to have the right energy at the right times in baseball as well. It's not, as wire to wire as calling a hockey broadcast. So the preparation for both is important, but completely different.
Right. Yeah, and as you mentioned that, obviously you called two completely different sports. You took over playing for the Colts or announcing for the Colts in 2010 after many years with the Baycats. And the Baycats went on a run when you left. They won 6 straight championships. They've been in the finals every year since 2012. And you remained a Baycats fan. We were talking before we started recording this that you went down to Kitchener to see the last championship game in 2019. Just what stands out to you over the last 6-8 years, leaving the Baycats and seeing them do what they did?
Well, the great thing is this is a franchise that continually adds pieces. They never just put the same team out there year after year after year and hope that they win it. And that's a huge credit to the recruiting staff, to the front office, to the management, everybody from President Dave Mills right on down. Josh Matlow's always got an eye out there. Dante DeCaria does an amazing job as well with the recruitment and getting new guys. Even look at the team this season. There's some new guys. There's some guys that are coming back after a few seasons. So they're constantly trying to find new ways to improve right across the team. So that's, I think, been a key for this incredible string of championships. Going for 7 in a row now. This season is amazing. And for me, being able to rejoin the team at this stage, coming out of a pandemic, so everybody's so excited to have baseball back. And to follow the story of this team and see if they actually can pull off this 7th consecutive championship is going to be it's going to be quite a story watching it unfold. And I'm pretty confident that they're going to entertain us and have some pretty exciting baseball along the way.
100%. And obviously, you came back to the Baycats around November. Josh reached out to you. I got in contact with you too. Absolute no-brainer in my perspective. Just how excited are you to come back, and just how did that process play out in your mind in terms of, okay, Matlow reaches out to you, you have to think about it, or is it an instant yes? What was your mindset after Josh reached out to you?
Well, really how it started, I wasn't thinking about trying to get the gig back or anything like that. I had missed doing sports announcing. It's been a few years now, but I sent an email off. I think it was the voting on the jerseys and the logos and stuff. And I sent a response, and then I got an email back. I don't know if it was from Josh or if it was just one of the return emails, but I sent Josh a follow-up email, and I said, hey, I'm excited about the season. Do you have a broadcast team in place? I know you had a couple of guys, Dante and Ben Shulman as well, who has been doing the games for a number of years. And I was just curious if they were coming back. And he said, no. He says, actually, we would be looking for someone to add to the team. And so I told him, hey, I'd love to give it a go. My kids are a little older now, so it's a good time for me to kind of get back into sports broadcasting. And yeah, we chatted for a little bit. And he said, you know what, we'd like to bring you back. And I remember calling games when Josh played for the Baycats. It wasn't that long ago. Maybe it seems like it, but so yeah, it's a great opportunity. I'm so excited about it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll get you out on this last question. I appreciate you coming on. Just what does excite you the most? You mentioned going for that historic 7th straight championship. You mentioned coming out of a pandemic, so everyone's looking forward to baseball. Is there one thing in particular that stands out to you, or is it just a combination of all those things that you touched on?
It's all of that and it's more. I mean, having baseball back in town to watch, I think of kids that have had their seasons canceled. Even my son playing baseball, very minor baseball. Unfortunately, they canceled their season. They had kind of a developmental league, kind of like a skills camp that ran for a number of weeks, but it wasn't the same. They didn't have the regular house league team versus team type games. And other sports too, hockey and baseball. I mean, this pandemic has been so hard on all of us. Not for the kids not being able to play sports and for the rest of us not being able to attend sports events. Getting back on the field, getting back to the ballpark. I saw the announcement from Dave Mills that their plan is to have 250 fans at opening day. That'll be great. I'm sure we're going to hit that mark. And hopefully, if everything goes as planned and we're all careful and follow the protocols, we'll be able to have more and more fans back at the park and pack it out again. So the timing of that, the timing of the 7th straight championship, which we're trying for this year, and seeing some returning guys come back. I could go through some names here. I saw Frank Garces is going to be coming back. He had one of the most amazing seasons in the history of the IBL as a pitcher. Getting him back and some other pieces in the infield and stuff. It's going to be a strong team, and I hope fans come out. I know they will, and it's going to be fun to watch.
Absolutely. Well, Ben, I appreciate you coming on today, and I can't wait for hopefully what will be June 3rd. You're the play-by-play guy, I'm the color guy, and we announce hopefully an historic 7th straight championship. So I thank you for coming on today.
My pleasure. We'll see you on June 3rd.